As a portrait photographer, and I can only speak about how I work, what I try to do is find something that neither the sitter nor I really know is going to come. So it's not a battle, it's not a quest, it's not a manipulative, force that's trying to pull something out. But what you're trying to do is just slow things down for that little moment, and you go, that's it.
In order to have a successful portrait, there really has to be this sort of transaction, if you will. I guess a way to describe it is there's a kind of complicitness between the sitter and the photographer.
Generally, if someone's saying to me, how do you do a good portrait? I said, find somebody interesting. Because generally people with an interest in life have an interest in life. So a lot of artists like that.
Lee Miller was an American photographer who actually started out on the other side of the camera. She was a model. She worked with Man Ray in Paris and assisted him in his printing, and was also his lover and his muse, and was the inspiration for many of his portraits. Her background of being a model and understanding how to sort of perform for the camera and how to present one's best image, if you will, very much informed her own portrait making then. Her portraits, while they're of sort of renowned artists and document people that were involved in the Surrealist movement at the time, they were also her friends, and it was her social group. But then you also have her more formal portraits, for example, the portrait of Joseph Cornell. His art was one of 3D, it wasn't necessarily 2D, and so to have him represented in this way makes perfect sense in sort of conveying his personality, who he is.
Warhol really was the key artist in understanding the importance of photography for art, and the paintings that he produced from the early 1960s onwards are actually based on photographs in which he really did very little to alter the image. He would impose colour on top of it, but the photographic image stayed as it was. This was the very sort of heart of the way he thought modern society was working. A lot of the art of the people that he took photographs of in the 70s and 80s were people he knew, particularly in the New York art world.
Robert Mapplethorpe was an American photographer who really came to prominence in the 1970s and 1980s. He gained quite a bit of notoriety for some of his images in depicting sort of homoerotic portraits. With all of Mapplethorpe's portraits, there was a sort of deep-rooted respect for the sitter, and none more so when the sitter happened to be an artist. People like Andy Warhol he very much admired for their ability to sort of position themselves and their artwork within this larger sphere, if you will.
Mapplethorpe had a very high regard for Andy Warhol's work, and in fact they showed together in 1983, but by this time Mapplethorpe was starting to make a name for himself, and Warhol was slightly, I wouldn't say uneasy, but he was sort of very wary of this young upstart.
Robert Mapplethorpe was fascinated by that whole period in time. Manhattan was happening, there was Max's, there was all, these energies, and Warhol would have the back room and it'd be all those and suches, those in the avant-garde art world. And Mapplethorpe wanted to break it. They all wanted to break into that. And I love the idea of that photograph with Warhol's head just floating, because it grew to the point someone who was really keen to join that circle, I think, seen through that circle or saw that circle for what it was. And I like the idea, or I get the feeling that he just wanted to cut that off from it.
One thing that can certainly contribute to a successful portrait is, of course, the planning for it. If you think of perhaps say the portraits of Robert Mapplethorpe, there's been great attention paid to the lighting, to the positioning of the sitter. This is very much a sort of performance where he sort of has an idea in his mind that, how he wants to sort of construct the image and how he's going to shoot the scene. We're not really getting insight into their personal lives. We're not really seeing them, caught in a spontaneous, informal setting. It's very much a deliberate kind of marketing of their image. If you compare that to the Lee Miller of Pablo Picasso, she's sort of almost caught him unawares. There's a very informal quality to it, but he's staring directly at the camera. I like to think that that was him sort of looking at Lee and sort of sizing her up, already thinking in his mind that he was going to paint her. In a way, it's quite hard to describe what makes a successful portrait because there's so many different elements and factors that sort of come into it. But I think if you sort of strip it down, it really does come back to this sort of chemistry between the photographer and the sitter. I think that's where you get the successful image.